Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you didn't know, my name is Robin, and if I look like a Victorian child, it is because it is New Year's Day, so happy 2023. I hope you have all had a great holiday, a good rest, and hopefully we go into 2023 with new reading goals and, you know, just better vibes, because I feel like 2022 probably wasn't like it. Today I will be going through my 5-star reads of 2022. I did want to do this a little bit sooner, but didn't really find the time to. Today I will be going through all of my 5-star reads from 2022, and I'm very excited to talk about some of these, and some of them I'm just going to brush over because it was a while ago. But these are the ones I loved, the creme de la creme of 2022. I'm very excited to talk about them. So let's just dive straight in, and these are in no particular order either, it's just how I picked them up, so let's just go for it. So the first book that we have is Open Water. This was an incredible read. Sort of like a love story about two people who are in very different situations, and they meet each other sort of like cross the lines in and out basically, and their connection is really beautiful. This is written so gorgeous. It's written a bit like a poem. I don't think I've ever read anything like this before. It was just an absolute treat to read, and I can't believe how gorgeous it was. It has my heart because this is a gorgeous read, and the author of this book is also bringing out a book this year. I can say this year now. It's bringing out a new book, which is this book here. I'm not sure the title, so I will pop it on the screen, and I'm very excited, and I will be buying that book as well because I'm very in love with how this author writes. And yeah, this was an incredible read. It is a love story, and if you are interested, I would definitely check this out. If we're reaching those book goals, it is a great place to start. The next one I rated 5 stars was Baby Teeth. Baby Teeth is a vampire and human love relationship. It's a doomed love story, and it is written in verse, so it does look like this. There we go. And it is such a gorgeous story. It's so heartbreaking, and the author definitely put a lot of emotion into this. It was very beautiful, and the cover is just gorgeous as well. You've got the cover, and then the back of it just sort of has the doom of the relationship and like the brightness of the relationship and the doom of it on the back. It's such a beautiful cover, and it is again another very short read, so if you are interested, I think this literally took me about half an hour to get through because it is written in verse, so it is very quick to read. I know I did a best books I've read of 2022 so far in the middle of the year, so I know I have already touched on these books already, so I'm trying to move as quickly through them as possible because I know that I have spoken about them, but it feels right to include them in the end of year book review. So the next one I gave 5 stars was A Dowry of Blood. This was incredible, and I did not expect this story to be about what it was about, and it follows the first bride of Dracula, Constanta. I will never get that name right. And it goes through the abuse that she suffered in the relationship with Dracula, and it's a really, again, as someone who has been in a situation like this, I think that the author did something so incredible. I think Dracula's character in this book was such a fantastic character to show this sort of abuse. Dracula just talks down to his wife, he makes sarky comments about her, and then he is horrifically controlling. He doesn't let her leave the house on her own, he's always there 24/7, and she never thinks that this is a bad thing for the first 100 or so years. But this book is also written as Constanta, I'm really sorry if I'm saying that wrong, looking back on her life, and this is sort of like her final letter to Dracula after that she has killed Dracula. That's not a spoiler, sort of like in the first page of the book, so this is sort of like her encompassing letter to Dracula, so we get a lot of emotion on the written side of it as well. This was a fantastically written book. It was absolutely gorgeous, and I do want to say, if you want to pick this book up, I picked this up because a lot of people were going, it's queer rep, and of course it is queer rep, but the story overall is about abuse and trauma. So if that catches you off guard, because I know it definitely caught me off guard because I just thought it was like, you know, queer people having a good time, then that's just a bit of a pre-warning. But it is a fantastically written book. I did give it 5 stars. I'm a very slow reader, and I read this in a day, so yeah. This was incredible. So the next 2 I want to talk about are together in a series, and I don't think I've talked about reading this book on this channel so far, but that is of course Gideon the Ninth. So I started Gideon the Ninth, and it has ruined my life. It has completely ruined my life and I'm so in love with it. This book has changed my life forever and it will never be the same. I think Gideon the Ninth might be one of my favourite books of all time. It was definitely one of my favourites this year. I have two favourites this year and it was Gideon, and we will talk about the other one in a second, but I have mentioned the other one many times on this channel because it is a fantastic book. But yeah, so this is one of the best books I read this year, if at all, basically. This broke my soul into thousands of tiny pieces. I cried for hours at different parts of it. It is as incredible as everyone says it is. And the second book, of course, I want to talk about is Harrow. I read Gideon and Harrow. I haven't read Nona yet, and of course Electo is coming out very soon, as in October time this year now, so I definitely have to get on Nona. Gideon and Harrow were absolutely incredible, and with the hype it got, I genuinely didn't think it could meet my expectations. Didn't just meet my expectations, it obviously exceeded it. This was incredible, and I don't think I will again ever read a book like this in a different way to Open Water, because this was just, the writing is so incredibly powerful, and I think it's such a fantastic thing for this author to have you quite confused most of the time and then bring all the pieces in together at the end, and it all suddenly makes at least a little bit of sense. But it's, I will never understand how she does it, because every time I'm blown away. So I'm very excited to read the rest of the series. The next one I rated 5 stars was Nevada. Nevada was an incredible read. I read this for, I think, my first or second book from book club, and I cannot tell you how incredible this book is. It's basically, when people recommend you sort of like starter books, if you want to read trans books, they will always recommend Nevada, and I understand why, because this was absolutely incredible. This book is a very bizarre read. There's a lot of chaotic queerness to this book, which I absolutely love. The main character, I will explain that in a second, is completely messy and I'm obsessed with her. Imogen Binney, who is the author of this book, actually did a Q&A with our book club. The main character in the book, when you read the book you would assume who is the main character, is actually not the main character, and it's somebody else in the middle of the book, and for that reason alone I really want to reread this, because it really shifts the perspective of the entire book if that is true. Very much recommend this, 10 out of 10. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Shocky is obsessed with it as well. Hello, say Happy New Year's for everybody. Shocky didn't read anything this year, so he can't be involved, unfortunately. The next read is an anthology of poems, which is 100 queer poems. These were all incredible, and a lot of them didn't necessarily reflect queerness, but they are all queer authors, and it was an absolutely incredible read. Okay, we've got like 4 left, so don't worry, we're getting there. The next 5-star read I had was Legends and Lattes. This book was incredible. It was lovely. It was definitely warm, and everyone says it's always like low stakes, cozy book. Fully that. When you hear people talk about it and you go, like, it can't be that cozy, it can't be that low stakes, because everybody uses those terms. It's exactly that. It is very lovely, it's very warming. Although there isn't a lot of action in this, the author still manages to create such a lovely, cozy and submersive environment that you don't get bored with, which I think is very incredible. And I just loved all of the characters in this book, and I really hope we get to see them again in the future. I just think little adventures with these guys would be such a lovely series, and yeah, this was definitely a 5-star read. I think I read this pretty quickly too, even though it is a chunky book, so I love that. I love this. The next book I gave 5 stars was The Dance Tree. This is by the same author that does The Mercenaries. I'm not sure how you say it, but that one's quite a popular sapphic book. It was quite recent. I think it might have even been this year that this came out. Can we get a moment for the sprayed images? How cute, how beautiful is this? There was something so incredible about the writing style of this book. It is written during the time, if you know your history, that people danced until they died in France. It was a mixture of religious pressure and starvation. It was basically a lot of stress and poverty that led to this mass hysteria in France, where people just started dancing, and they danced until they dropped dead, or until the church did something with them. Watch the Puppet History episode about it, honestly, you'll learn everything. It comes from the perspective of the main character, who has not been able to conceive before and has had 11 or so miscarriages, and so she has finally become pregnant and almost carried to full term, And basically her life, she is a little bit disgraced because she has been called barren, and it basically follows her family and this mass hysteria that starts going on and sort of her views around it. And slowly, I think the book slowly follows the pace of the mass hysteria. It's really bizarre to read. Again, this book is horrifically submersive. It's really beautifully written, and there's something about it that was quite haunting to read. And it wasn't a scary book, but there was something quite haunting about it. This book was truly a beautiful read, and it was definitely a standout for 2022. I think it definitely has to be like one of the top 10 of my books this year, because yeah, this was absolutely incredible. The next book I want to talk about is Tell Me I'm Worthless. I don't have the book with me. Tell Me I'm Worthless was one of the best horror stories I have ever read in my entire life. That's it. This book follows 3 people who go to a haunted house when they were teenagers, and only 2 of them come out, and it changes them as people and it changes their lives, and they are basically haunted by what happened in this house. And as a way to try and resolve this haunting, they go back to the house to try and save the friend that never came out. And when people have described books to me as like, I was too scared to turn the page, I have never understood what they meant until I read this book. Stuff that was so shocking going on, so violent and so shocking, that I was genuinely terrified to turn the page because I didn't want the characters to be going through this. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. I think genuinely this has to be in my top 3 reads for 2022. It's very, very far up. And also thank you to my friend who recommended it to me, because I've been on a wild ride ever since reading it. It was absolutely incredible. I loved it so much. And yeah, if you ever get the chance to check it out, I definitely would. It is only a very short read as well, but please do read the trigger warnings beforehand. Obviously it is a violently grim horror book. It also has transphobia as well, because one of the main characters is trans. It is all part of the overarching story. So yes, if you're interested in horror, genuinely read Tell Me I'm Worthless. I know it is the best horror story I have ever read, and yeah, there's no higher praise than that, I don't think. How to Excavate a Heart was a 5-star read for me. This was adorable. The author has come out and said that this isn't a Christmas book because both the characters are Jewish and it just happens around Christmas. So I know I put this on my Christmas books of 2022 list, and I just want to not retract it, but also just say that the author has not intended this to be a Christmas story. It was a lovely fluffy story, one of the best romances I've read for a long time. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the dynamic of the 2 main characters, and I loved it. I completely loved it. HarperCollins is on strike, so support the strikes. Don't buy from HarperCollins, get from a library, borrow, do what you need to do, but just don't buy from them until this is all sorted, because obviously everyone who works there deserves better conditions and better pay, so support the strikes. I will not talk about this book for much longer because I know I have raved about it in every single positive book video I did last year, but this is my favourite book of all time. This book was incredible, and it was the very first book I read for book club, and this changed my life. As in, this was, I think I almost want to put this on the sort of same level as Open Water, as in the writing style is so incredibly gorgeous, the language used, it's so beautiful, it's so heartbreaking, and it is like a love story, and it's, again, I will not go into details because I've talked about this to the ends of the earth, but this book genuinely changed the direction of my life forever, and I am obsessed with Julia Arnfield's work. I love her work. Definitely go and check Julia Arnfield out. I genuinely think that she is an author that is going to be massive, because I have never read anything quite like this. And I've said that about 3 books on this list, so they're all very different in their own ways. I will never read something as beautiful as this, I don't think. So this definitely deserves to be my favourite book of all time. My favourite book of all time, my favourite book of 2022. Yeah, the list goes on. This was incredible. I loved all these books. I think 2022 was such a fantastic year for me. I read, let's see if we can focus. Can we focus? So I read 60 books last year, which was my goal. I'm very, very excited to continue the streak of reading fantastic books in 2023. Thank you also so much for joining my YouTube channel. If you have been here since the start, if you've been here 5 minutes, I really enjoy making content for YouTube. I really enjoy talking about books, and I really hope that we can continue this into 2023. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it really means a lot to me. And yeah, thank you so much if you've watched any of my videos. I can't wait to make more content in the new year, so thank you so much. So I shall see you next time.